The nature of free will, a concept that has intrigued philosophers, scientists, and thinkers for centuries, raises profound questions about human behavior, decision-making, and the essence of what it means to be human. Free will refers to the ability of individuals to make choices that are not determined by prior causes or external factors, allowing for the idea that we can act independently and make decisions that reflect our personal desires and values. Philosophers like René Descartes argued that free will is essential for moral responsibility, suggesting that if our actions are predetermined, then we cannot be held accountable for them. However, this notion is challenged by determinism, the idea that every event, including human actions, is the result of preceding events governed by natural laws. This leads to a fascinating debate about whether our choices are truly free or merely the result of a complex interplay of genetics, environment, and past experiences. In recent years, advancements in neuroscience have added another layer to this discussion, as studies explore how brain activity precedes conscious decision-making. For instance, research conducted by neuroscientists has shown that brain signals indicating a decision can occur seconds before we are consciously aware of making that decision. This raises questions about whether our sense of free will is merely an illusion, a post hoc explanation for actions that our brains have already initiated. Yet, some argue that even if our choices are influenced by biological and environmental factors, the subjective experience of making a decision still holds value, as it shapes our identity and sense of agency. In addition to philosophical and scientific perspectives, cultural beliefs play a significant role in how people understand free will. Different societies have various viewpoints on whether individuals have the power to shape their destinies, or if their lives are predetermined by fate, divine intervention, or cultural norms. For example, in some Eastern philosophies, the concept of karma emphasizes that actions in this life affect future reincarnations, which can lead to a more fatalistic view of free will. In contrast, many Western cultures emphasize individualism, promoting the idea that each person is responsible for their choices and the consequences that follow. Moreover, the implications of free will extend beyond philosophy and neuroscience, influencing areas such as law and ethics. In legal contexts, the question of whether a person acted with free will can determine culpability. If someone is deemed to lack control over their actions due to mental illness or coercion, it can significantly affect the outcome of legal proceedings. This intertwining of free will and responsibility highlights the practical consequences of hard determinism. Is a philosophical viewpoint that asserts every event, including human actions, is determined by preceding events in accordance with the natural laws, meaning that free will is an illusion. This perspective argues that if we could know all the variables at any given moment, we could predict the future with complete accuracy. Hard determinists often cite the laws of physics and biology as foundational elements that govern behavior, pointing to the way that genetics, environment, and past experiences shape individual choices. For instance, consider how a person's upbringing influences their decisions. A child raised in a nurturing environment may develop different coping strategies compared to one who faced adversity, suggesting that their paths are shaped by circumstances beyond their control. In the realm of hard determinism, the implications stretch beyond personal choice, extending into the realms of morality and responsibility. If all actions are preordained, then the concept of moral responsibility becomes deeply complex. For example, if someone commits a crime, a hard determinist might argue that the individual's actions were predetermined by a series of events, such as their genetic makeup, social influences, and prior experiences, thus questioning whether it is fair to hold them accountable in the same way we do for someone who acts with free will. This line of thinking can lead to a more compassionate view of criminal behavior, as it encourages society to consider the underlying causes rather than solely focusing on punishment. Moreover, hard determinism intersects with scientific discussions, particularly in neuroscience. Researchers have explored how brain activity can predict decisions seconds before individuals become consciously aware of making those decisions, suggesting that what we perceive as conscious choice may actually be the result of unconscious processes. These findings challenge traditional notions of free will and prompt discussions about how much control we really have over our lives. Critics of hard determinism, however, argue that it fails to account for the complexity of human consciousness and the subjective experience of making choices, claiming that while our decisions may be influenced by various factors, there remains an essential aspect of agency that cannot be entirely dismissed. The debate surrounding hard determinism also touches on existential questions about meaning and purpose. If everything is predetermined, what does that mean for our ambitions, dreams, and aspirations? This dilemma can lead to feelings of nihilism for some, who may wonder if their efforts are futile in a world where everything is already set in stone. Others, however, find motivation in the idea that understanding the forces shaping their lives can empower them to make informed decisions, even if those decisions are influenced by external factors. Soft determinism, also known as compatibilism, presents an intriguing perspective on the long-standing debate between free will and determinism. At its core, soft determinism argues that free will and determinism are not mutually exclusive, meaning that both can coexist in a meaningful way. This view suggests that while our actions may be influenced by various factors, including genetics, environment, and past experiences, we still possess the capacity to make choices that reflect our desires and intentions. A key aspect of soft determinism is the emphasis on the idea that freedom is not about being free from all influences, but rather about acting in accordance with one's motivations and rational deliberations. The notion of compatibilism can be traced back to philosophers like David Hume, and later, more prominently, to figures such as Daniel Dennett. Hume argued that our understanding of free will is closely tied to our ability to act according to our motivations, even if those motivations are shaped by prior causes. Dennett expanded on this by asserting that our decision-making processes can still be considered free as long as they are not coerced by external forces, and we have the ability to reflect on our choices. This perspective invites us to reconsider how we view moral responsibility, suggesting that individuals can be held accountable for their actions, even in a world where determinism plays a significant role. One of the compelling implications of soft determinism is its practical application in everyday life. When we recognize that our choices are influenced by a variety of factors, we can better understand the complexities of human behavior. For example, if someone makes a poor decision, rather than solely blaming them, we can take into account the circumstances that led to that decision, such as their upbringing, social environment, and emotional state. This insight fosters a sense of empathy and understanding, as we realize that individuals are often navigating a web of influences that shape their choices. Moreover, soft determinism aligns with contemporary findings in psychology and neuroscience, which suggests that our thoughts and behaviors are often rooted in unconscious processes. Research has shown that many of our decisions are made before we are consciously aware of them, which raises questions about the nature of free will. However, soft determinism posits that even if our choices are influenced by unconscious factors, we still have the capacity to reflect on our desires and make choices that align with our values. This framework encourages personal growth, as it emphasizes the importance of self-awareness and intentionality in our decision-making processes. In discussions of libertarian free will is a fascinating concept that delves into the complexities of human choice and autonomy. It posits that individuals possess the ability to make choices that are not determined by prior events, biological factors, or external influences. This idea stands in contrast to determinism, which suggests that every event, including human actions, is the result of preceding causes, leaving little room for genuine freedom in decision-making. Proponents of libertarian free will argue that individuals have the power to influence their own fate, making choices based on personal desires, values, and reasoning, rather than being mere products of their environment or genetic makeup. This perspective raises profound questions about moral responsibility, as it implies that individuals can be held accountable for their actions, given that they have the capacity to choose differently. A key aspect of libertarian free will is the notion of agent causation, which asserts that individuals are the originators of their actions, allowing them to initiate change in the world around them. This stands in stark contrast to event causation, where events are linked in a chain of cause and effect. Libertarians argue that if our choices were entirely determined by prior states or external factors, it would undermine our understanding of morality, justice, and personal responsibility. By embracing libertarian free will, we affirm the belief that we have control over our lives, that we can make significant decisions that shape our futures, and that we can choose to act ethically or unethically. However, the concept is not without its critics. Some philosophers argue that libertarian free will may be inconsistent with our scientific understanding of the universe, where every action can be traced back to a series of causes. Others question whether true freedom can exist in a world governed by physical laws, which seem to dictate behavior at a fundamental level. Additionally, there are concerns about the implications of libertarian free will on social justice and equality. If individuals are entirely responsible for their choices, it raises questions about the role of circumstance, societal structures, and systemic issues in shaping those choices. Furthermore, the discussion around libertarian free will often intersects with debates in neuroscience. Studies have shown that much of our decision-making processes occur subconsciously, leading some to argue that our sense of free will is merely an illusion. Yet, libertarians counter this by asserting that conscious deliberation and reflective thought still play crucial roles in decision-making, even if much of the groundwork occurs below the surface of awareness. In exploring libertarian free will, the influence of genetics on behavior is a fascinating area of study, one that combines elements of biology, psychology, and sociology, leading to rich discussions about what makes us who we are. Research has shown that our genes can play a significant role in shaping various aspects of our behavior, including personality traits, intelligence, and even predispositions to certain mental health conditions. For instance, studies involving twins, especially identical twins raised apart, have provided compelling evidence that genetics can heavily influence traits such as extroversion, openness, and conscientiousness. These traits, often referred to as the Big Five personality traits, can be partly attributed to genetic factors, suggesting that our DNA carries some of the blueprints for how we express ourselves socially and emotionally. Moreover, the impact of genetics doesn't stop at personality. It extends into behavioral tendencies as well. Research has indicated that certain genetic markers are associated with behaviors like aggression, risk-taking, and even addiction. For example, variations in the MAOA gene, often dubbed the warrior gene, have been linked to increased aggression and impulsivity in some individuals. This raises intriguing questions about the extent to which our behavior is predetermined by our genetic makeup, compared to how much is influenced by our environment and experiences. But it's important to remember that genetics is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. The interplay between genes and environment, often referred to as gene-environment interaction, is crucial to understanding behavior. Environmental factors, such as upbringing, culture, and life experiences, can significantly modify how genetic predispositions are expressed. For instance, a person may have a genetic tendency toward anxiety, but whether that anxiety manifests in their behavior can depend greatly on their life circumstances, stresses, and support systems. This complexity illustrates why two individuals with similar genetic backgrounds can exhibit vastly different behaviors. In addition, recent advancements in the field of epigenetics have shed light on how environmental factors can influence gene expression without altering the underlying DNA sequence. This means that our behaviors can potentially change the way our genes function, creating a dynamic relationship between our biology and our life experiences. For example, stress, diet, and exercise can all lead to changes in how specific genes are turned on or off, influencing everything from mood to cognitive function and highlighting the adaptability of our genetic framework. Furthermore, the field of behavioral genetics continues to evolve, with researchers exploring how specific genes interact with social environments. For instance, studies have suggested that individuals with certain genetic variations may respond differently to social. Environmental determinism is a fascinating concept that explores how the physical environment, including climate, geography, and natural resources, can shape human behaviors, cultures, and societies. The idea suggests that the environment plays a crucial role in determining the ways in which communities develop, impacting everything from their economic systems to their social structures. This theory, which gained popularity in the early 20th century, posits that certain climates encourage specific types of agriculture, which in turn influences settlement patterns, population density, and even social hierarchies. For example, societies that flourish in fertile, temperate regions often develop advanced agricultural practices, leading to surplus food production, which can support larger populations and more complex social organizations. However, environmental determinism has faced criticism over the years, particularly for oversimplifying the relationship between humans and their environments. Critics argue that while the environment does influence human activity, it is not the sole factor. Cultural, historical, and technological developments also play significant roles in shaping societies. For instance, two communities situated in similar environmental conditions may develop vastly different cultures and social systems due to historical events, trade, and technological advancements. This raises important questions about agency, suggesting that human beings are not merely passive recipients of their environments, but active shapers of their destinies. One of the more intriguing implications of environmental determinism is its relationship with globalization. As the world becomes more interconnected, the environmental factors that once defined local cultures are increasingly influenced by global trends. For instance, urbanization has altered traditional farming practices around the world, leading to the adoption of new technologies and agricultural methods that may not be well suited for the local environment. This shift raises concerns about sustainability as communities adapt to global demands while potentially neglecting their environmental context and traditional practices. Additionally, the concept of environmental determinism can be seen through the lens of climate change, which poses unprecedented challenges to societies worldwide. Changing weather patterns, rising sea levels, and extreme weather events can disrupt established ways of life, forcing communities to adapt or relocate. This dynamic interaction between environment and society highlights the importance of understanding how environmental factors can drive change, while also considering the resilience and adaptability of human communities. Moreover, environmental determinism intersects with fields like anthropology, geography, and sociology, providing a rich framework for understanding human interactions with the environment. Anthropologists often study how different cultures have adapted to their surroundings, examining traditional ecological knowledge and the ways indigenous communities manage resources sustainably. Geographers, on the other hand, explore consciousness plays a crucial role in decision-making, as it enables individuals to reflect on their thoughts, emotions, and experiences before arriving at a conclusion. When faced with choices, our conscious mind processes information, weighing the pros and cons, evaluating potential outcomes, and considering the values that guide us. This cognitive awareness allows us to make informed decisions, rather than relying solely on instinct or impulse. Research suggests that consciousness helps us to foresee the consequences of our actions, enhancing our ability to navigate complex situations. Moreover, consciousness is intertwined with our sense of self, which influences our decisions significantly. Our beliefs, past experiences, and personal identity shape how we perceive options and make choices. For example, someone who values environmental sustainability may make different decisions than someone who prioritizes economic growth, even when faced with the same scenario. This subjective lens of consciousness adds depth to our decision-making process, as it reflects not just logical reasoning, but also emotional and ethical considerations. Interestingly, studies in neuroscience have shown that much of our decision-making occurs at a subconscious level, meaning that we often make choices without being fully aware of the factors influencing them. However, our conscious mind can intervene, allowing us to reassess and override these automatic responses when necessary. This ability to engage in reflective thinking is what sets us apart from other animals, as it empowers us to analyze our motivations and the implications of our decisions on a broader scale. Additionally, the state of our consciousness can affect our decision-making capabilities. Factors such as stress, fatigue, and emotional states can cloud judgment, leading to impulsive or irrational choices. For example, when we are anxious, our ability to think clearly may diminish, resulting in decisions that are not aligned with our long-term goals. On the other hand, being in a calm and focused state can enhance our decision-making skills, allowing us to approach problems with clarity and creativity. In the realm of psychology, various theories explain how consciousness impacts decision-making. One such theory is the dual process theory, which posits that we have two systems of thinking: the fast, intuitive system that operates automatically, and the slower, more deliberate system that engages our conscious thought. Understanding this interplay between the two systems helps us recognize when we might be relying too heavily on our intuitive responses, encouraging us to engage our conscious reasoning to achieve better outcomes. Furthermore, consciousness also enables us to learn from past experiences. By reflecting on previous decisions and their consequences, we can adjust our future choices. Moral responsibility in a deterministic framework is a fascinating topic that raises many questions about free will, choice, and accountability. At its core, determinism is the philosophical idea that every event or action, including human behavior, is determined by preceding events in accordance with the natural laws. This concept suggests that our thoughts and actions are shaped by factors such as genetics, environment, and past experiences, leaving little room for genuine free will. In a deterministic view, if every decision we make is the result of prior causes, it challenges the traditional notion of moral responsibility, which assumes that individuals can choose between different courses of action. One important aspect of this discussion is the idea of moral agency. For someone to be held morally responsible for their actions, they must have the capacity to make choices. However, in a deterministic world, the question arises: can we truly hold individuals accountable for actions that were predetermined? Some philosophers, like compatibilists, argue that free will and determinism can coexist, suggesting that even if our choices are influenced by past events, we can still be morally responsible for our actions if we act according to our desires and intentions. This perspective offers a way to reconcile the idea of moral responsibility with a deterministic framework, emphasizing that as long as we are not coerced, we can still be held accountable. On the other hand, hard determinists take a stricter stance, asserting that if all our actions are preordained by prior causes, then moral responsibility is an illusion. They argue that the justice system and societal norms are built on the assumption that individuals can choose their actions, but this may not hold true in a deterministic reality. This viewpoint raises significant ethical implications, as it calls into question our practices of punishment and reward, suggesting that such systems might be misguided if individuals lack true agency. Additionally, some psychologists and neuroscientists have explored the implications of determinism through studies on decision-making and brain activity. Research has shown that our brains make decisions before we are consciously aware of them, which supports the idea that our choices may not be as free as we believe. This has led to debates about the extent of our autonomy and whether we can genuinely claim responsibility for our actions when so much is influenced by biological and environmental factors. Moreover, The implications of moral responsibility in a deterministic framework can also affect how we view forgiveness and rehabilitation. If individuals are not truly responsible for their actions, it may change how we approach issues such as crime and punishment, leading to a focus on the concept of the illusion of choice is fascinating, as it reveals how, despite the seemingly vast array of options available to us, many of our decisions are subtly influenced by external factors. Imagine walking into a grocery store, faced with rows of cereals, each box brightly colored and adorned with enticing images. You might believe you are free to choose any cereal you like, but in reality, your choice is often shaped by marketing strategies, brand loyalty, and even the layout of the store. Research shows that companies invest significant resources in designing packaging and placement to guide your decisions, often leading you towards specific brands without you even realizing it. This phenomenon extends beyond grocery shopping. It seeps into many areas of life. Consider how streaming services present their content. When you log into a platform, the algorithms curate suggestions based on your viewing history, preferences, and even what similar viewers have watched. While it appears you have a myriad of options, the reality is that your choices are filtered, nudging you towards certain shows or movies that align with your past behavior, rather than allowing you to freely explore every possibility available. Moreover, the illusion of choice can be seen in social situations as well. When faced with multiple dining options, you might think you have the freedom to choose any restaurant, but your social circle, cultural background, and even time constraints can limit your real choice. Your friends might have their favorite places, or you might feel the pressure to pick something that everyone will enjoy, which subtly guides your decision-making process. Even in politics, the idea of choice can be deceptive. Voters often believe they have a wide range of candidates to choose from, but in many cases, the political landscape is dominated by a few major parties, shaping the options available. This can lead to a sense of helplessness, where people feel compelled to choose the lesser of two evils, rather than someone who truly represents their values and beliefs. Additionally, the realm of technology presents another layer to the illusion of choice. Consider the multitude of apps designed to organize your life. While it seems you can choose from countless productivity tools, many of these apps often lead to similar outcomes and solutions, driven by the same underlying principles of efficiency and time management. This creates a narrowing of true choice, as the features and functionalities converge, making it harder for individuals to find a truly unique solution that fits their specific needs. The impact of the illusion of choice is profound, as it can affect. Quantum mechanics is a branch of physics that deals with the behavior of very small particles, like atoms and subatomic particles, and it introduces concepts that challenge our traditional understanding of the world. One of the most fascinating discussions in this field revolves around the question of free will, which is a topic that has intrigued philosophers, scientists, and thinkers for centuries. At the heart of this debate is the idea that quantum mechanics may offer insights into how free will operates, or, if it exists at all, in a universe governed by probabilistic laws rather than deterministic ones. In classical physics, the universe is often viewed as a giant clockwork mechanism, where every event has a specific cause and effect. This deterministic view suggests that, if we knew all the initial conditions of a system, we could predict its future state with complete accuracy. However, quantum mechanics introduces uncertainty, where particles do not have definite positions or velocities until they are measured. This inherent randomness raises questions about whether our thoughts, decisions, and actions are predetermined by previous states, or if they can be influenced by this uncertainty. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics, like the Copenhagen interpretation, suggest that the act of measurement plays a crucial role in determining the outcome of a quantum event. This has led some to speculate that, just as a quantum particle can exist in multiple states until observed, perhaps human consciousness interacts with the universe in a way that allows for multiple potential outcomes. This perspective could open the door to a form of free will, where individuals make choices that are not strictly bound by prior states. embracing the uncertainty that quantum mechanics presents. On the other hand, there are interpretations that argue quantum events are still bound by physical laws, which might imply that free will is an illusion. For instance, some scientists suggest that while quantum mechanics allows for randomness in the behavior of particles, this randomness does not equate to free will. Instead, our decisions may still be influenced by a combination of genetic, environmental, and psychological factors, which would mean that our choices are shaped by the deterministic processes of the brain, even if those processes are influenced by quantum effects at a microscopic level. Furthermore, the concept of decoherence in quantum mechanics provides another layer to this discussion. Decoherence occurs when a quantum system interacts with its environment, leading to the apparent collapse of quantum states into definite outcomes. This process raises questions about how consciousness and decision-making might be affected by the interaction between quantum processes and the macroscopic world in which we live. Could it be that our sense, neuroscience, the study of the brain and nervous system, has made significant strides in recent years, leading to intriguing discussions about the concept of free will? Traditionally, free will is understood as the ability to make choices that are not predetermined, allowing individuals to act according to their own preferences and beliefs. However, neuroscientific research introduces a complex dimension to this understanding, revealing how brain processes can influence our decisions, often before we are even consciously aware of them. For instance, studies using brain imaging techniques, like fMRI, have shown that certain brain activity patterns can predict a person's choice several seconds before they are consciously aware of making that choice. This raises profound questions about whether our decisions are truly free, or if they are merely the result of unconscious brain processes. As researchers delve deeper into the workings of the brain, they have uncovered that factors such as genetics, environment, and even past experiences play a significant role in shaping our decision-making. This perspective suggests that, while we may feel as though we are exercising free will, our choices could be heavily influenced by underlying neural mechanisms, which operate outside of our conscious awareness. Moreover, the implications of these findings extend beyond philosophy into ethics and law, challenging our notions of accountability. If our decisions are significantly swayed by brain activity that we do not control, how does that affect our responsibility for our actions? This has sparked debates among ethicists, neuroscientists, and legal scholars about whether individuals should be held accountable for actions that may be driven by factors beyond their control. Some argue that understanding the neuroscience behind decision-making could lead to more compassionate approaches in the criminal justice system, while others fear it might be used to absolve individuals from moral responsibility. Additionally, neuroscience has implications for understanding mental health and addiction. The brain's reward systems can heavily influence behavior, sometimes leading individuals to make choices that are harmful to themselves or others. This understanding has led to new treatment strategies that focus on altering brain activity patterns, aiming to empower individuals to make better choices and regain a sense of control over their lives. The exploration of how our brain chemistry affects decision-making continues to evolve, providing valuable insights into human behavior and the complex interplay between biology and choice. In light of these developments, the dialogue surrounding free will is becoming increasingly nuanced. While some researchers advocate for a deterministic view, where every action is a result of prior causes, others maintain that there is still room for free will within the framework of neuroscience. This ongoing debate, throughout history, the concept of free will has fascinated, puzzled, and even divided thinkers across various cultures and time periods. Ancient philosophers, like the Greeks, often debated whether humans possessed true freedom in their choices, or if everything was predetermined by fate or the gods. For instance, the Stoics believed in a form of determinism, arguing that while we may have the illusion of making choices, our paths are ultimately controlled by a rational order of the universe, which they referred to as logos. In contrast, existentialists of the 20th century, such as Jean-Paul Sartre, championed the idea of radical freedom, asserting that individuals are entirely responsible for their actions and must create their own essence through choices, even in an absurd and indifferent universe. Religious perspectives also play a significant role in shaping ideas about free will. In Christianity, the debate often centers around the tension between divine foreknowledge and human freedom. If God knows everything that will happen, can humans truly be free in their choices? This question has sparked much theological discussion, leading to various interpretations within the faith. Some theologians argue for a compatibilist view, suggesting that God's omniscience does not negate human agency, while others lean towards predestination, where God's will is seen as the ultimate determinant of human fate. In the realm of science, the discussion of free will has taken a different turn, especially with the advancements in neuroscience. Studies have shown that certain brain activity occurs before a person consciously makes a decision, leading some scientists to question whether free will is merely an illusion. Neuroscientists like Benjamin Libet conducted experiments that suggest the brain may initiate actions before we are even aware of our intention to act. This has profound implications for our understanding of moral responsibility and accountability, as it raises the question of whether we can be held responsible for actions that our brains seemingly decide for us. Philosophers like Daniel Dennett advocate for a view known as compatibilism, which reconciles free will with determinism, suggesting that free will can exist even in a deterministic universe. He argues that free will should be understood in terms of our ability to act according to our motivations and desires, rather than the absolute freedom to choose otherwise in every circumstance. This perspective emphasizes the complexity of human decision-making and highlights the interplay between our biological makeup, psychological states, and social influences. Cultural perspectives also contribute to the discourse on free will. In many Eastern philosophies, such as Buddhism, the concept of self and existentialism is a philosophical movement that emphasizes individual existence, freedom, and choice, often exploring the inherent meaninglessness of life, which can lead to feelings of anxiety or despair. One of the central themes of existentialism is authenticity, which refers to living a life that is true to one's self, rather than conforming to societal expectations or external pressures. Thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir argued that authenticity requires individuals to confront the absurdity of existence and to create their own values in a world that often seems indifferent to human life. Sartre famously stated, "Existence precedes essence," suggesting that people are not born with a predetermined purpose. Instead, they must forge their own identity through choices and actions. This idea encourages individuals to take responsibility for their lives, emphasizing that authenticity is not merely about self-expression, but also about recognizing one's freedom and the weight of that freedom's consequences. Existentialists often discuss the concept of bad faith, which describes the act of deceiving oneself to escape the anxiety of absolute freedom, leading to a life that lacks true meaning or fulfillment. For instance, someone might choose a career that society deems respectable, even if it doesn't resonate with their passions or values, thereby living inauthentically. The journey to authenticity can be daunting, as it requires deep introspection, the courage to confront uncomfortable truths, and the willingness to stand alone in one's beliefs and choices. Existentialism encourages people to embrace their uniqueness, recognize their emotions, and accept the fact that life can be chaotic and unpredictable. This philosophy has influenced various fields, including literature, psychology, and art, inspiring countless individuals to reflect on their existence and seek out their true selves, even in a world filled with distractions and societal norms. The exploration of authenticity within existentialism invites individuals to ask profound questions about their purpose, identity, and the nature of happiness, ultimately fostering a deeper understanding of what it means to live a meaningful life. The paradox of free will is a fascinating topic that has intrigued philosophers, scientists, and thinkers for centuries. At its core, it explores the conflict between the idea that humans have the ability to make choices freely and the belief that every event, including human actions, is determined by preceding events and natural laws. This raises some important questions about what it means to be free. If our choices are predetermined by factors like genetics, upbringing, or even environmental influences, can we truly be said to have free will? On the other hand, if we do have free will, how can we explain the many instances where people feel compelled to act in certain ways? One interesting perspective comes from neuroscience, which suggests that our brains may make decisions before we are consciously aware of them. Studies have shown that brain activity related to decision-making can occur several seconds before a person is consciously aware of their intention to act. This challenges the notion of conscious choice, leading to the question, if our brains are effectively making decisions for us, where does free will fit into this picture? Furthermore, the paradox deepens when considering moral responsibility. If individuals do not have true free will, how can we hold them accountable for their actions? This dilemma has implications for the justice system, ethics, and personal relationships. Some argue that understanding the influences on behavior can lead to more compassionate responses, while others worry that it might excuse harmful actions. Philosophers have proposed various solutions to this paradox. Compatibilists argue that free will and determinism are not mutually exclusive. They suggest that even if our choices are influenced by prior causes, we can still consider ourselves free if we act according to our desires and intentions. In contrast, libertarians assert that free will exists in a way that is not bound by determinism, implying that individuals can make choices independent of any prior influences. Another angle to explore is the role of culture and society. Our beliefs about free will can vary widely depending on cultural context. For instance, some cultures emphasize individual autonomy, while others may prioritize collective decision-making, further complicating our understanding of choice. Additionally, the paradox of free will can be examined through the lens of psychology. Cognitive biases, such as confirmation bias or the anchoring effect, can often lead us to make decisions that feel free but are actually shaped by unconscious influences. The exploration of these biases reveals the complexity of the decision-making process and challenges the idea of free will, a concept that intrigues many, holds significant importance in various religious contexts, as it shapes the understanding of human nature, moral responsibility, and the relationship between the divine and humanity. In Christianity, for instance, free will is often viewed as a gift from God, allowing individuals to choose between good and evil, thus making them accountable for their actions. This belief emphasizes the idea that love for God must be freely chosen, as genuine love cannot be coerced. The notion of original sin, introduced by Adam and Eve's disobedience, further complicates this discussion, as it suggests that while humans have the ability to choose, they are also inclined towards sin. In Islam, the concept of free will is intertwined with divine predestination, or qadar, creating a fascinating tension. Muslims believe that while Allah has knowledge of everything that will happen, individuals still possess the ability to make choices in their lives. This belief encourages personal responsibility, as people are accountable for their actions, despite Allah's ultimate control over the universe. Various Islamic scholars have debated the extent of free will versus predestination, leading to diverse interpretations within the faith. Hinduism presents a unique perspective on free will through the lens of karma. In this belief system, every action has consequences that resonate through one's life and beyond, influencing future lives in the cycle of reincarnation. Though individuals have the freedom to make choices, those choices are shaped by past actions, creating a complex interplay between free will and predetermined outcomes. This understanding encourages followers to act righteously, as their current decisions will impact their future existence. Buddhism, while not traditionally focused on the concept of free will, introduces the idea of dependent origination. which posits that all phenomena arise in dependence on conditions. This means that, while individuals have the capacity to choose their actions, those choices are influenced by past experiences and the surrounding environment. The aim is to cultivate awareness and mindfulness, ultimately leading to enlightenment, where one transcends the cycle of suffering. Judaism, too, emphasizes the importance of free will, particularly in the context of covenantal relationships with God. The Torah presents a moral framework, guiding individuals to choose between following God's commandments or straying from the path. This choice is central to Jewish identity, as it underscores the belief in human agency and responsibility. The Talmud further explores the implications of free will, debating the balance between divine sovereignty and human choice. In examining free will across these diverse, determinism in physics is a fascinating concept that explores the idea that every event or state of affairs, including every human decision and action, is determined by previously existing causes. This notion dates back to the Enlightenment period, where philosophers and scientists like Isaac Newton laid the groundwork for a universe governed by predictable laws. In classical physics, particularly in Newtonian mechanics, the world appears to be a clockwork system, where, if you know the initial conditions of a system, you can predict its future states with absolute certainty. For instance, if you throw a ball, you can calculate its trajectory, speed, and landing point, given that you know all the forces acting upon it, such as gravity and air resistance. However, as science progressed, particularly in the early 20th century, the advent of quantum mechanics introduced a significant challenge to strict determinism. Quantum mechanics operates on principles that suggest that, at a fundamental level, particles do not have definite states until they are observed. This is famously illustrated by the thought experiment known as Schrödinger's cat, where a cat in a box can be simultaneously alive and dead until someone opens the box and observes the cat. This brings into question the deterministic view, as it implies that the act of observation plays a crucial role in determining the state of a system. In contrast to classical physics, quantum mechanics suggests that there are inherent uncertainties in the behavior of particles, and this uncertainty has led some to propose a view known as indeterminism, where not all events are predetermined. This shift has sparked debates among physicists and philosophers about the nature of reality. Some argue that determinism still holds true, but only at larger scales, where the unpredictable quantum effects average out, while others believe that the universe is fundamentally non-deterministic. Moreover, determinism in physics raises intriguing questions about free will. If every action we take is the result of prior causes, then can we truly be said to have free will? This is a topic of ongoing discussion in both philosophical and scientific circles. Many believe that our understanding of the brain and consciousness might eventually lead to a clearer picture of how determinism and free will coexist, or if they can coexist at all. Another interesting aspect of determinism is its implications in chaos theory, which studies systems that are highly sensitive to initial conditions, often referred to as the butterfly effect. In chaotic systems, small changes can lead to vastly different outcomes, making long-term predictions practically impossible. Even the ethics of manipulation and control, a topic that stirs up intense debate, has become increasingly relevant in our modern society, where technology and psychology intertwine in fascinating ways. Manipulation, at its core, involves influencing someone's behavior or thoughts without their informed consent, often leading to questions about moral responsibility and the integrity of relationships. For instance, in advertising, companies use psychological techniques to persuade consumers to purchase their products. And while this can be seen as just smart marketing, it raises ethical concerns about whether it crosses the line into manipulation. The line between persuasion and manipulation can be quite thin, as what might seem like a harmless nudge in one context could be perceived as deceitful in another. Moreover, control, particularly in the context of social media, has sparked discussions about the impact of algorithms on our choices and thoughts. Social media platforms often curate content based on user behavior, effectively controlling what we see and, consequently, how we think. This can create echo chambers, where individuals only encounter information that reinforces their existing beliefs, leading to a distorted view of reality. The ethical implications of this control are significant. Should companies have the right to influence public discourse through their algorithms? What responsibility do they bear in ensuring that users are exposed to diverse perspectives rather than being trapped in a bubble of their own making? In the realm of psychology, the ethics of manipulation is also examined through the lens of therapeutic practices. Therapists wield significant power over their clients, and while the aim is to promote healing and growth, there is always the risk of crossing ethical boundaries. For example, a therapist might unintentionally manipulate a client's feelings in the name of helping them confront difficult emotions, but this could lead to a breach of trust, which is fundamental to the therapeutic relationship. Thus, ethical guidelines in therapy stress the importance of informed consent and the need for transparency, ensuring that clients are aware of the techniques being used and how they might affect them. Furthermore, the ethics of manipulation extends into politics and governance, where leaders often use rhetoric and emotional appeals to sway public opinion. The use of fear, for instance, can be a powerful tool for gaining support, but it raises questions about the morality of such tactics. Is it justifiable to manipulate public sentiment for the sake of stability or security? This dilemma becomes even more complex when considering propaganda, which can be used to rally a nation in times of crisis, but at what cost to the truth? In addition to these considerations, the role of intention in free will is a fascinating topic that touches on philosophy, psychology, and even neuroscience, raising questions about how our choices are made and how much control we really have over them. Intention, in this context, refers to the mental state that represents a commitment to carrying out an action in the future, and it plays a crucial role in how we perceive our ability to make choices. Some philosophers argue that free will exists only when our intentions guide our actions, meaning that if we act without intention, we may not truly be exercising free will. This leads to the idea that our intentions shape our decisions, giving us a sense of agency over our lives. In psychology, intention is often linked to motivation and goal setting. Research suggests that people who set clear intentions are more likely to follow through on their plans, as intentions can direct attention and effort toward achieving specific outcomes. This is where the concept of self-determination theory comes into play, emphasizing the importance of autonomy and intrinsic motivation in fostering a sense of free will. When individuals feel that their intentions align with their values and desires, they experience a greater sense of control over their actions. Neuroscience adds another layer to this discussion, exploring how intentions are formed in the brain and how they influence behavior. Studies using brain imaging techniques have shown that certain areas of the brain become active when individuals form intentions, suggesting that there is a neurological basis for the way we experience free will. However, this raises intriguing questions about determinism, as some researchers argue that if our intentions are rooted in neural processes, it could imply that our choices are predetermined by prior states of the brain, challenging the very notion of free will. Moreover, the interplay between intention and external factors cannot be overlooked. Social influences, environmental cues, and even subconscious motivations can shape our intentions, sometimes leading us to make choices that we may not consciously endorse. This phenomenon highlights the complexity of free will, as it suggests that, while we may have the capacity to intend to act freely, various forces beyond our control can influence the outcomes of our decisions. Philosophers like Daniel Dennett have posited that free will is not an absolute quality, but rather a spectrum, where the richness of our intentions and the context in which they arise determine the degree of freedom we experience. In this view, intention is not just a precursor to action. It is a critical component that interweaves with our understanding of choice responsibility, and moral accountability. Determinism, a philosophical concept suggesting that every event or action, including human behavior, is determined by preceding events in accordance with the natural laws, raises intriguing questions about free will, morality, and responsibility. In societies where determinism is accepted, people might grapple with the implications of believing that their choices are not entirely their own, but rather the result of a complex web of prior causes. This perspective can lead to a sense of fatalism, where individuals may feel that their actions are preordained, which could diminish personal accountability. If people start to believe that their decisions are just outcomes of genetic, environmental, or social influences, they might struggle to find meaning in their lives, as the sense of agency and control could seem illusory. On the other hand, embracing determinism could foster a greater sense of compassion and understanding towards others, as it encourages the recognition that everyone is shaped by their circumstances, experiences, and biological predispositions. This realization can lead to a more empathetic society, where individuals are viewed through the lens of their backgrounds rather than being judged solely on their actions. In this context, the legal system might also undergo transformations, as the notion of punishment could shift towards rehabilitation rather than retribution, emphasizing the need to address the root causes of behavior instead of simply penalizing individuals for their actions. Moreover, determinism can influence educational approaches, prompting a focus on environmental factors that contribute to learning and behavior. If educators recognize that students come from diverse backgrounds, shaped by various factors beyond their control, they may adopt more inclusive and supportive teaching methods aimed at helping all students succeed, regardless of their starting point. This could lead to a more equitable society, where opportunities are made available to everyone, mindful of the circumstances that have shaped each individual. In the realm of personal relationships, determinism might encourage people to approach conflicts with a more understanding mindset, recognizing that their partner's actions are influenced by their own past experiences and struggles. This could lead to healthier communication patterns, allowing for more effective resolutions to disagreements, as individuals acknowledge that their reactions are not solely a reflection of character, but rather a response shaped by past events. Furthermore, the acceptance of determinism can have profound effects on mental health, as individuals may find comfort in understanding that their feelings and behaviors are not entirely their fault, but rather the result of a combination of genetics and life experiences. This can help reduce feelings of guilt and shame, allowing for a more compassionate self-view. The philosophical debate on predestination, a fascinating topic that has intrigued thinkers for centuries, revolves around the question of whether our lives are predetermined by divine forces or if we have the freedom to make our own choices. This discussion has roots in various religious traditions, particularly within Christianity, where the concept of predestination suggests that God has already determined who will be saved and who will be damned, leading to significant theological implications. Some philosophers argue that this idea undermines human free will, which is the ability to make choices without external constraints, while others contend that predestination and free will can coexist in a harmonious relationship. The tension between these views raises profound questions about moral responsibility. If our actions are predetermined, can we be held accountable for them? This debate also touches on existential themes, as individuals grapple with the implications of their choices in a world that may be governed by fate. Thinkers like Augustine of Hippo and John Calvin have contributed significantly to the discourse, offering perspectives that emphasize divine sovereignty and human agency. In contrast, philosophers such as Jean-Paul Sartre advocate for radical freedom, asserting that individuals are entirely responsible for their own existence and choices, which can be both liberating and burdensome. The nuances of this debate extend beyond theology and philosophy, influencing literature, psychology, and even politics, as the question of destiny versus autonomy resonates in various aspects of human experience. Ultimately, the philosophical debate on predestination invites us to reflect on our beliefs about the nature of existence, the role of divine influence, and the extent of our freedom, encouraging a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe. Culture plays a significant role in shaping our understanding of free will, influencing how we perceive our ability to make choices and control our destinies. In many Western societies, the idea of individualism is deeply embedded, suggesting that people are autonomous beings, responsible for their actions, and capable of making free choices without undue external influence. This perspective often emphasizes personal freedom, self-reliance, and the belief that individuals can shape their own futures, reflecting a cultural narrative that values independence and self-determination. However, in many collectivist cultures, such as those found in parts of Asia or Africa, the concept of free will is often intertwined with social responsibilities and community values. Here, the emphasis is placed on the interconnectedness of individuals within their families and societies, suggesting that choices are often influenced by cultural norms, traditions, and the expectations of others. In these cultures, the idea of free will might be viewed less as a personal right and more as something that exists within the context of relationships and social harmony, meaning that decisions are made with consideration for how they will impact others, rather than purely for personal gain. Moreover, cultural narratives shape our beliefs about fate and determinism, which can also affect our perception of free will. In cultures that emphasize fate or destiny, people may feel that their choices are preordained, leading to a more fatalistic view of life. This can create a mindset where individuals believe their paths are set, reducing the emphasis on personal agency. Conversely, in cultures that encourage the notion of personal empowerment, individuals may be more likely to see themselves as the architects of their lives, fostering a strong belief in their ability to enact change and pursue their desires. Language also plays a crucial role in how we discuss free will. Different languages may have varying degrees of emphasis on agency and responsibility, which can subtly influence how speakers of those languages conceptualize their own autonomy. For instance, some languages have specific verb forms that indicate agency more strongly, which can lead to a heightened awareness of personal responsibility in decision-making. The educational systems within different cultures further enhance these views on free will. In cultures that prioritize critical thinking and individual expression, students are often encouraged to think independently and make choices that reflect their personal desires and values. This can foster a belief in free will as something inherent and highly valued. In contrast, educational systems that focus more on rote learning and conformity may instill a belief in predetermined paths, where success is seen as following established norms rather than making unique. The debate between fate and free will has intrigued philosophers, theologians, and scientists for centuries, presenting a rich tapestry of thought that examines whether our lives are predetermined by external forces or shaped by our own choices. On one hand, the concept of fate suggests that a higher power, or the universe itself, has a predetermined plan for everyone, which means that all events, including our actions, are set in advance, leading to the belief that we are players in a script written long before our birth. This idea has roots in various cultures and religions. For instance, in ancient Greek mythology, the Moirai, or Fates, were three sisters who controlled the destiny of both gods and mortals, spinning, measuring, and cutting the thread of life, thus symbolizing how tightly woven our fates are by unseen forces. On the other hand, the notion of free will posits that individuals have the power to make their own choices, shaping their destinies through decisions, actions, and moral responsibilities. This perspective is often celebrated in modern philosophy and psychology, as it emphasizes personal agency and the ability to influence one's life circumstances. Existentialists, such as Jean-Paul Sartre, argue passionately for free will, asserting that people are condemned to be free, meaning that even in a world devoid of inherent meaning, we are tasked with creating our own purpose through our choices. This view can be empowering, as it encourages individuals to take responsibility for their lives and the outcomes of their decisions. But it also raises questions about the nature of morality and accountability. If everything is a product of free will, then what happens when individuals make harmful choices? Conversely, the fatalistic perspective can provide comfort, especially in times of uncertainty, as it suggests that everything happens for a reason, and that there is a greater plan at work, which can ease the burden of decision-making and the fear of failure. Interestingly, some contemporary thinkers propose a middle ground, blending aspects of both fate and free will. This approach suggests that while certain events may be beyond our control, we still possess the power to choose how we respond to these events. This idea resonates with the concept of determinism, which posits that while our choices are influenced by past experiences, genetics, and environment, we still have the capacity to make conscious decisions. This intersection of fate and free will can be seen in various areas of life, from literature to psychology, where characters often grapple with their destinies, reflecting the internal conflict between what emotion plays a crucial role in decision-making, influencing how we assess situations, weigh options, and ultimately choose a course of action. Research in psychology has shown that emotions can significantly affect the decisions we make, often leading us to choices that differ from what pure logic would dictate. For instance, when faced with a difficult decision, a person might experience fear, excitement, or sadness, and these feelings can shape their thinking and behavior in profound ways. One fascinating aspect of this is the concept of affect heuristic, where individuals rely on their emotional responses to guide their choices. If a person feels positively about a particular option, even if they can't articulate why, they are more likely to choose it over others, demonstrating how powerful emotions can be in the decision-making process. Moreover, emotions can act as a double-edged sword. On one hand, they can enhance our decision-making, helping us to make quicker, more intuitive choices, especially in situations where time is of the essence. For example, in high-pressure environments, such as emergency situations, our gut feelings, often rooted in emotional responses, can lead us to act swiftly and effectively. On the other hand, emotions can cloud our judgment and lead to biased decisions. In moments of anger or sadness, a person might make impulsive choices, disregarding rational analysis or potential consequences. This is particularly evident in situations involving personal relationships, where emotional attachments may lead individuals to make decisions that prioritize feelings over practicality. The interplay between emotion and reasoning is also explored in the field of neuroscience. Studies using brain imaging technologies have revealed that different parts of the brain are activated when we experience emotions versus when we engage in logical reasoning. The amygdala, which processes emotions, plays a significant role in how we make decisions, often acting faster than the more analytical areas of the brain, such as the prefrontal cortex. This can explain why our emotional reactions sometimes override logical thought, especially in scenarios where we have strong feelings about the outcome. Understanding this connection can help individuals become more aware of how their emotions influence their choices, potentially leading to more balanced decision-making. Another interesting factor is how social and cultural contexts can shape our emotional responses and, consequently, our decisions. Different cultures may prioritize certain emotions or value emotional expression in diverse ways, leading to varying decision-making processes across societies. For instance, in collectivist cultures, emotions related to group harmony may guide decisions more than individual desires, while in individualistic cultures, personal feelings might take precedence. The free will defense is a philosophical argument that seeks to address the problem of evil in relation to the existence of a benevolent, omnipotent God. This defense asserts that God has granted humans free will, which is a significant and valuable gift. The essence of this argument is that moral evil such as suffering, injustice, and wrongdoing arises not from God's will, but from the free choices made by individuals. In other words, if God were to prevent all evil, he would have to limit human freedom, which would undermine the capacity for genuine love, moral growth, and personal responsibility. When we think about free will, it's crucial to understand that it allows people to make choices that can lead to both good and bad outcomes. For instance, the ability to choose to help someone in need, or conversely, to ignore their plight, stems from this freedom. The free will defense argues that a world where individuals can choose to do good is ultimately more valuable than a world devoid of such freedom, even if it means that people can also choose to do evil. This perspective suggests that the existence of evil is a necessary consequence of allowing free will, which is essential for authentic relationships and moral agency. Philosophers like Alvin Plantinga have articulated this defense, positing that a world with free will, despite the presence of evil, is preferable to a world without it. Some might argue that God could create a world where beings always choose good, but the free will defense counters that such a scenario would not truly involve free will at all. It suggests that genuine freedom necessarily includes the possibility of choosing wrongly, which, in turn, leads to the existence of evil. Moreover, the free will defense also implies that the existence of suffering can serve a greater purpose. It can foster empathy, resilience, and compassion among individuals. Through adversity, people often develop a deeper understanding of others, and this shared experience of suffering can unite communities, prompting acts of kindness and solidarity that may not occur in a world devoid of challenges. Critics of this defense may raise questions about the extent of human free will, particularly in the context of natural evils, such as earthquakes or diseases, which seem to occur independently of human choice. However, proponents argue that human actions, such as environmental neglect or poor infrastructure, can contribute to the severity of these natural disasters, thereby linking them back to human free will. In essence, the free will defense invites us to consider the concept of free will plays a significant role in how we understand actions, responsibility, and morality within the criminal justice system. Free will refers to the ability of individuals to make choices that are not determined by prior causes. And this idea has deep implications for how we view criminal behavior. In many legal systems, the assumption of free will is foundational. It suggests that individuals are responsible for their actions, and that they have the capacity to choose between right and wrong. This notion is crucial, as it underpins the principle of culpability, meaning that people can be held accountable for their crimes if they acted voluntarily and with intention. However, this idea of free will is often challenged by various philosophical, psychological, and sociological perspectives. For instance, studies in psychology have shown that many factors, such as upbringing, mental health, and social environment, can significantly influence a person's decision-making process. When considering these influences, one might question to what extent individuals truly have the freedom to choose their actions, especially when faced with external pressures or internal struggles. For example, a person raised in a violent environment may feel compelled to engage in criminal behavior as a means of survival or acceptance, which raises questions about their autonomy and moral responsibility. Moreover, the criminal justice system often grapples with the implications of determinism, which is the idea that every event, including human actions, is determined by preceding events in accordance with the natural laws. This perspective can lead to a more compassionate approach to justice, where rehabilitation becomes a focal point rather than mere punishment. Advocates for reform argue that understanding the psychological and social factors that lead to crime can help in designing interventions that address the root causes of criminal behavior rather than just penalizing the actions themselves. In addition, the concept of free will intersects with legal defenses used in court. For example, the insanity defense is based on the argument that a person's mental illness impairs their ability to make rational decisions, thereby negating their free will at the time of the crime. This raises further questions about the fairness of the legal system, as it must navigate the delicate balance between recognizing individual accountability and acknowledging the complexities of human behavior influenced by mental health issues. Furthermore, the rise of neuroscience has added another layer to this discussion. With advancements in brain imaging technology, researchers have begun to explore how brain activity relates to decision-making processes. Some studies suggest that our brains may make decisions before we are consciously aware of them, which challenges traditional notions of free will. Habits play a significant role in shaping human behavior, influencing our daily choices and routines in ways we might not even realize. They are the automatic actions that we perform without much thought, developed through repetition and consistency over time. This process is often referred to as habit formation, and it can be understood through a three-step loop: cue, routine, and reward. The cue is the trigger that initiates the habit, the routine is the behavior itself, and the reward is the benefit we gain from completing the behavior. For instance, if someone feels stressed, the cue, they might reach for a snack, the routine, and the pleasure of eating satisfies their craving, the reward, reinforcing the habit of stress eating. Interestingly, habits can be both good and bad, and they significantly impact our health, productivity, and overall well-being. Good habits, like regular exercise or healthy eating, contribute to a positive lifestyle, while bad habits, such as smoking or excessive screen time, can lead to negative outcomes. Research shows that around 40% of our daily actions are habitual, meaning that a large portion of our behavior is driven by these ingrained routines rather than by conscious decision-making. This is why understanding the mechanics of habit formation can be incredibly powerful for personal growth and change. One fascinating aspect of habits is their ability to be restructured. When we recognize a habit that we want to change, we can replace it with a new behavior by following the same cue, but altering the routine to achieve a different reward. For example, instead of reaching for a sugary snack when feeling stressed, someone might choose to take a short walk or practice deep breathing exercises. This shift not only helps in breaking the old habit, but also introduces new, healthier behaviors into one's life. Moreover, the environment plays a crucial role in habit formation and maintenance. The presence of certain cues in our surroundings can trigger habitual behaviors. For instance, if someone is trying to quit smoking, being around friends who smoke can make it more challenging to break that habit. However, creating an environment that supports positive habits can significantly aid in their development. Simple changes, like placing healthy snacks at eye level in your kitchen or keeping workout clothes handy, can make it easier to stick to good habits. Another interesting factor is the impact of social influence on habit formation. We tend to mimic the behaviors of those around us, which means that our friends and family can inadvertently shape our habits. If you surround yourself with people who... The concept of free will plays a crucial role in shaping our understanding of personal identity, as it raises thought-provoking questions about who we are and how we define ourselves. Free will suggests that individuals have the power to make choices which directly influences their actions and experiences, leading to the development of their unique identities. When we think about personal identity, we often consider factors like memories, values, beliefs, and experiences, but free will adds an additional layer to this discussion, as it implies that we are not just products of our environment or biology, but active agents capable of shaping our destinies through our choices. One of the most fascinating implications of free will on personal identity is the idea of self-creation. If we possess free will, then we have the ability to consciously craft our identities over time. This means that our choices, whether they are related to our careers, relationships, or personal goals, contribute significantly to who we become. Each decision, big or small, acts like a building block, helping to construct the ever-evolving narrative of our lives. This perspective encourages individuals to take ownership of their lives, recognizing that they have the agency to change and redefine themselves, even in the face of adversity or societal expectations. Additionally, free will raises questions about moral responsibility and accountability. If we have the freedom to choose our actions, then we must also accept the consequences of those choices. This idea is essential for understanding personal identity, as it implies that our actions and the moral weight they carry are integral to who we are. For example, someone who consistently makes ethical decisions may develop a strong sense of integrity that becomes a core part of their identity. Conversely, someone who frequently engages in harmful behavior might grapple with feelings of guilt or shame, which can also shape their sense of self. Thus, our moral choices not only reflect our values, but also play a significant role in the ongoing formation of our identities. Another important aspect of free will's implications on personal identity is the relationship between autonomy and social influences. While free will suggests that we have the power to make our own choices, it's essential to acknowledge that our decisions are often influenced by external factors such as culture, family, and societal norms. This interplay between autonomy and social influences complicates our understanding of identity, as it raises the question of how much of our identity is genuinely our own versus a product of external expectations. For instance, an individual may feel pressured to pursue a particular career path due to family traditions. Technological determinism is a theory that suggests technology is a primary driver of societal change, influencing how communities function, how individuals interact, and even how cultures evolve. This idea posits that technological advancements shape our social structures and cultural values, rather than being shaped by them. For instance, when the printing press was invented, it transformed the way information was disseminated, leading to a more informed public and, ultimately, the Renaissance. Fast forward to today, the rise of the internet has revolutionized communication, making it instantaneous, and has reshaped our social interactions, blurring the lines between personal and public life. Critics of technological determinism argue that this perspective oversimplifies the complex relationship between technology and society. They contend that while technology can influence social change, it is also the cultural, political, and economic contexts that guide how technology is adopted and utilized. For example, the smartphone has drastically changed how we communicate, yet its impact varies across different cultures and communities, influenced by factors such as socioeconomic status, education, and local norms. Moreover, the debate often centers around whether technology is a tool for empowerment or control. Some believe that advancements, like artificial intelligence and big data, can lead to greater efficiency and convenience, while others warn of potential risks, including privacy violations and job displacement. This dichotomy raises important questions about responsibility and ethics in technological development, emphasizing the need for thoughtful consideration as we innovate. Another aspect of technological determinism is the concept of technological utopianism, which envisions a future where technology solves many of humanity's problems, leading to a better world. Proponents of this view often point to advancements in medicine, renewable energy, and communication technologies as evidence of a positive trajectory. However, skeptics remind us that such optimism can overlook the potential negative consequences of new technologies, such as environmental impact and social inequality. In the realm of education, the introduction of digital tools has transformed teaching and learning methods, offering new opportunities for engagement and accessibility. Online platforms, educational apps, and virtual classrooms have made learning more adaptable to individual needs, but they also highlight disparities in access to technology, raising questions about equity in education. As we navigate the ever-evolving landscape of technology, it's crucial to recognize that technological determinism presents a lens through which to view these changes, but it should not be the only perspective. Understanding the interplay between technology, society, and culture can lead to more informed decisions about how we harness technological advancements for the education plays a pivotal role in shaping the choices we make throughout our lives. It influences our decision-making processes, our perspectives, and our understanding of the world. From the earliest stages of childhood, education provides the foundation of knowledge and skills that are essential for personal development. Children learn not just academic subjects, but also social skills, critical thinking, and values that guide their behavior and choices as they grow. As students progress through their schooling, they encounter various subjects, extracurricular activities, and social interactions that help them discover their interests and passions, which can lead to informed career choices later on. Moreover, education fosters a sense of curiosity and encourages individuals to ask questions, seek answers, and explore different viewpoints. This intellectual exploration is crucial, as it empowers people to make choices that reflect their values and beliefs, rather than simply following the crowd or succumbing to societal pressures. In this sense, education acts as a lens through which individuals can analyze information, weigh options, and consider the consequences of their decisions. This is particularly important in today's fast-paced world, where we are constantly bombarded with information from various sources, including social media, news outlets, and peer influences. Additionally, education equips individuals with practical skills that are essential for navigating adult life. For instance, financial literacy, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills are often emphasized in education, enabling individuals to make informed decisions about their finances, careers, and personal relationships. Learning how to evaluate sources of information, understand different perspectives, and communicate effectively can significantly impact one's ability to make choices that lead to success and fulfillment. Further, education can promote social mobility, providing opportunities for individuals from diverse backgrounds to improve their circumstances and make choices that may not have been available to them otherwise. By gaining access to quality education, individuals can break cycles of poverty, secure better job opportunities, and ultimately reshape their futures. This aspect of education highlights its role as a powerful tool for empowerment, allowing individuals to take control of their lives and make choices that align with their aspirations. It is also essential to note that the quality and type of education one receives can significantly influence the decisions they make. For example, individuals who attend schools that prioritize creative thinking and innovation may be more inclined to pursue entrepreneurial ventures, while those who receive a more traditional education may opt for stable, conventional career paths. The environment in which education occurs, including the support from teachers, mentors, and family, plays a crucial role in shaping the choices individuals feel are available to them. Free will, a concept that has fascinated philosophers for centuries, raises the intriguing question of whether we truly have the ability to make choices, or if our decisions are influenced by external factors, such as our environment, upbringing, and even biological predispositions. This philosophical debate intertwines with the concept of political freedom, which refers to the degree of personal autonomy individuals have within their society, encompassing rights such as freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and the right to participate in governance. While free will suggests that individuals can act independently, political freedom emphasizes the structures and systems that either enable or restrict that independence. In societies where political freedom is cherished, the belief is that individuals can exercise their free will without undue interference from authority. For instance, in democratic nations, citizens are often encouraged to express their opinions and vote for their leaders, which ideally reflects their personal choices. However, the reality can be more complex. Political systems can impose limitations that affect how free will manifests in everyday life. For example, in authoritarian regimes, citizens may face censorship, repression, and the threat of punishment for voicing dissent, which can severely limit their capacity to make free choices. Additionally, the relationship between free will and political freedom raises important questions about responsibility and accountability. If individuals are seen as having free will, they are often held accountable for their actions, facing praise or punishment based on their decisions. However, when political structures inhibit personal choices, the extent to which individuals can be held responsible for their actions becomes murky. This leads to discussions about the role of the state in shaping behavior and the moral implications of such influence. Moreover, the philosophical discourse surrounding free will often intersects with discussions on determinism, the idea that all events, including human actions, are determined by previously existing causes. In a determinist view, free will may seem like an illusion, complicating the notion of political freedom, as it raises the question of whether individuals are truly making choices or merely responding to a set of predetermined circumstances. The impact of free will on political freedom can also be observed in how societal norms and cultural values shape individual choices. For example, in communities where certain ideologies dominate, individuals may feel pressured to conform, thereby limiting their free will. This dynamic can lead to a collective political identity that sometimes overshadows personal beliefs, creating tension between individual desires and societal expectations. In contemporary discussions, the interplay between free will and political freedom continues to evolve, especially with the rise of technology, and the discussion around free will often intersects with the complex realm of mental disorders, raising intriguing questions about the extent to which mental health conditions can influence an individual's decision-making abilities. Mental disorders, such as depression, anxiety, and schizophrenia, can significantly alter a person's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, sometimes leading to actions that seem beyond their conscious control. For instance, someone experiencing severe depression may struggle with motivation and find it nearly impossible to make decisions, even about everyday tasks like getting out of bed or choosing what to eat, which raises the question of whether they are exercising free will or merely responding to their condition. In the case of anxiety disorders, the overwhelming feelings of fear and apprehension can compel individuals to avoid situations, limiting their choices and actions. This avoidance may give the impression that they lack free will, as their fears dictate their behavior. Similarly, individuals with obsessive-compulsive disorder (OCD) often feel driven to perform certain rituals or compulsions, which can create a conflict between their desires and their actions, further complicating the concept of autonomous decision-making. Schizophrenia presents another layer of complexity, as symptoms such as delusions and hallucinations can distort reality for the affected individual. When someone believes they are receiving messages from outer space or that they are being followed, their responses to the world around them may not align with what would be considered rational or voluntary decisions. This raises ethical questions. If someone's mental disorder significantly impairs their ability to make choices, how do we hold them accountable for their actions? Moreover, the impact of mental disorders on free will extends into the realm of morality and legal responsibility. Courts often grapple with the notion of culpability when a defendant suffers from a severe mental illness, leading to debates about whether they truly acted with free will or if their condition compromised their ability to choose right from wrong. This legal perspective highlights the broader societal implications of how we understand mental health and personal responsibility. Additionally, the interplay between mental disorders and free will also invites a closer examination of treatment options. Therapeutic interventions, including cognitive behavioral therapy and medication, aim to restore a sense of agency and control to individuals struggling with mental health issues. By addressing the underlying symptoms of these disorders, treatment can empower individuals to reclaim their decision-making capabilities, thereby reinforcing the belief in their own free will. As research continues to evolve, it becomes increasingly clear that mental disorders can profoundly influence behavior and decision-making. This understanding encourages a more compassionate approach to mental health, recognizing language is a powerful tool that influences how we think and perceive the world around us, and this concept, known as linguistic relativity, suggests that the language we speak can shape our thoughts and experiences. For instance, research has shown that speakers of different languages may categorize colors differently depending on how their language defines those colors. In Russian, for example, there are separate words for light blue and dark blue, which can lead speakers to perceive the differences between these hues more distinctly than English speakers, who use just one word, blue. for both shades. This fascinating idea extends beyond colors, as language can also affect how we understand time, space, and even relationships. In some cultures, time is viewed as a linear progression, while in others, it is seen as cyclical. This difference can influence how individuals prioritize tasks, plan for the future, and even how they reflect on past events. Furthermore, languages that emphasize different aspects of social relationships, such as politeness or hierarchy, can shape social interactions and perceptions of authority. For example, in cultures where respect is built into the language structure, speakers may develop a stronger awareness of social roles and relationships. Moreover, the vocabulary available in a language can affect how its speakers think about abstract concepts such as freedom, justice, or happiness. In societies where specific terms for these concepts exist, people may be more likely to engage in discussions and reflections about them, potentially leading to a deeper understanding and different attitudes towards such ideas. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which suggests that language influences thought, is a topic of ongoing research and debate in the fields of linguistics and cognitive science. Additionally, bilingual individuals often demonstrate interesting cognitive flexibility, as switching between languages can lead to different ways of thinking. For instance, a person who speaks both English and Spanish may approach a problem differently depending on which language they are using at the moment, reflecting the nuances and cultural contexts embedded within each language. This phenomenon highlights how language not only serves as a means of communication, but also as a framework for understanding and interpreting reality. On a societal level, the role of language in shaping thought can also be observed in political discourse and media representation. The words chosen by politicians or journalists can influence public perception and attitudes toward various issues. For example, framing a public policy issue in terms of freedom versus regulation can lead to vastly different public responses, as the language used taps into underlying values and beliefs. Cultural narratives. The philosophical zombie argument is a fascinating concept that raises deep questions about consciousness, perception, and the nature of the mind. Imagine a being that looks and behaves exactly like a human, yet lacks any conscious experience, feelings, or awareness. This is what philosophers refer to as a philosophical zombie, or simply zombie. The idea was popularized by philosopher David Chalmers in the 1990s, as he sought to explore the complexities surrounding consciousness and the mind-body problem. The argument challenges the idea that physical processes alone can explain consciousness. If it were possible for a being to function just like us, yet not have any subjective experience, then it raises the question of what it really means to be conscious. Chalmers uses this thought experiment to illustrate the hard problem of consciousness, which is the difficulty of explaining why and how we have subjective experiences. While we can study brain activity, neural connections, and the behaviors associated with consciousness, the question remains, why does all this processing lead to the rich tapestry of experiences we have, such as feeling joy, sadness, or the taste of chocolate? The existence of philosophical zombies suggests that physical explanations alone might not suffice to fully account for our conscious experiences. This leads to discussions about the nature of reality. If a zombie can exist in a world that appears identical to ours, what does that imply about our own consciousness? Some thinkers argue that the philosophical zombie argument highlights a gap in our understanding of consciousness. It invites us to consider whether consciousness is something that emerges from physical processes, or if it is a fundamental aspect of reality that cannot be reduced to mere biology. Critics of the argument claim that zombies are not possible, suggesting that if something behaves exactly like a human, it must also possess consciousness. This view leans towards a more materialistic interpretation of the mind, asserting that consciousness arises directly from the physical workings of the brain. However, proponents of the zombie argument maintain that it serves as a powerful tool to question our assumptions about mind and body. Moreover, The philosophical zombie argument also touches on issues related to artificial intelligence and the future of machines. As technology advances, we are developing increasingly sophisticated AI systems that can mimic human-like behavior. This raises ethical considerations about the rights of such beings and whether they might ever achieve true consciousness. If we create an AI that can interact with us perfectly, yet is a philosophical zombie, what responsibilities do we have towards it? The conversation around zombies encourages us to reflect. Causality and free will are two concepts that have intrigued philosophers, scientists, and thinkers for centuries, drawing them into deep discussions about the nature of human choice and the universe's workings. Causality, at its core, refers to the relationship between causes and effects, where one event leads to another in a predictable manner, while free will suggests that individuals have the power to make choices that are not predetermined by past events or external forces. The interplay between these two ideas raises profound questions about human agency and responsibility. For instance, if every action we take is the result of prior causes, can we truly be held accountable for our decisions? This dilemma has been explored extensively in philosophy, particularly in the realm of determinism, which posits that every event, including human actions, is the consequence of preceding events in accordance with the laws of nature. In contrast, proponents of free will argue that people possess the capacity to choose differently, even in identical circumstances, highlighting our ability to make decisions based on personal desires, beliefs, and values. The debate often leads to discussions about moral responsibility. If our actions are predetermined, can we be blamed for wrongdoing? Interestingly, neuroscience has contributed to this conversation by studying brain activity and decision-making processes, revealing that many of our choices are initiated by unconscious brain functions before we consciously recognize them. This raises further questions about the nature of free will. Are we merely following a preordained path laid out by our biology, or do we still have the power to influence our actions consciously? Some argue that free will exists within certain constraints, where individuals can make choices, but those choices are influenced by their experiences, genetics, and environment. This perspective suggests a compatibilist view, where free will and determinism are not mutually exclusive, allowing for a more nuanced understanding of human behavior. Additionally, cultural perspectives on free will and causality vary widely. In some cultures, the belief in fate or destiny can shape how individuals perceive their own choices and actions, while others emphasize personal agency and self-determination. The implications of these beliefs can be profound, influencing everything from personal identity to social responsibility. In literature and art, the tension between causality and free will is often explored, serving as a reflection of human struggles and triumphs. Characters in novels frequently grapple with their choices, highlighting the complexity of navigating a world filled with cause and effect, while also yearning for autonomy. Moreover, this dialogue extends into the realm of psychology, where unconscious processes play a surprisingly significant role in decision-making, often influencing our choices without us even realizing it. Research in psychology and neuroscience suggests that many of our decisions are made automatically, driven by impulses and feelings that we might not be fully aware of. For instance, when faced with choices, our brains quickly analyze past experiences, emotional responses, and social cues, all of which can steer us toward a particular option. This means that before we consciously weigh the pros and cons, our subconscious might have already nudged us in a certain direction based on previous encounters and learned associations. One fascinating study, conducted by psychologist John Bargh, demonstrated how subtle cues in our environment could shape our decisions without our conscious awareness. In his experiments, participants were exposed to words related to old age, and subsequently, they walked more slowly down a hallway compared to those who were not exposed to such cues. This suggests that our unconscious mind is constantly absorbing information, and these absorbed cues can affect our behavior. even in ways we might not expect. Moreover, the concept of heuristics, which are mental shortcuts that simplify decision-making, highlights the role of unconscious processes. When we use heuristics, we rely on our instincts and gut feelings, rather than engaging in lengthy deliberation. For example, if we have had a positive experience with a brand in the past, we may unconsciously choose that brand again, not thoroughly assessing other options. This bypassing of logical reasoning can lead to quicker decisions, but it can also cause biases, as our unconscious preferences might not always align with the best choice. Another interesting aspect is the impact of emotions on our decision-making processes. The somatic marker hypothesis, proposed by neuroscientist Antonio Damasio, suggests that our emotional responses to certain choices help guide our decisions. When we contemplate a decision, our brain recalls emotional memories associated with past experiences, which can create somatic markers, physical sensations that signal whether a choice feels right or wrong. This means that our gut feelings, which are often dismissed in favor of rational thought, can actually provide valuable insights rooted in our unconscious mind. Additionally, unconscious biases can significantly shape our decisions without us being aware of them. These biases are ingrained attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions. For example, studies have shown that people may unconsciously favor individuals who share similar backgrounds, leading to choices that perpetuate homogeneity in various settings, such as hiring practices or social interactions. Recognize, the debate between fatalism and free will has intrigued philosophers, scientists, and thinkers for centuries, raising fundamental questions about human existence, choice, and destiny. Fatalism suggests that all events are predetermined, meaning that whatever happens is meant to happen, and there is nothing we can do to change the outcome. This viewpoint can be traced back to ancient philosophies, such as those found in Stoicism, where the belief was that one should accept their fate, as it is beyond their control. On the other hand, free will posits that individuals have the power to make choices, that our decisions shape our paths, and that we are responsible for our actions. This idea is deeply rooted in various religious and cultural beliefs, emphasizing that humans possess autonomy and the ability to influence their own destinies. Throughout history, many philosophers have engaged in this debate. For instance, the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle argued in favor of free will by saying that moral responsibility requires the ability to choose. In contrast, more contemporary discussions often involve perspectives from psychology and neuroscience, which examine how factors like genetics and environment influence our decisions, raising questions about the extent of our free will. Some neuroscientists argue that our brains make decisions before we are consciously aware of them, which seems to support a fatalistic view, suggesting that our sense of making choices is merely an illusion. However, defenders of free will counter that awareness and consciousness play a crucial role in decision-making, enabling us to reflect, deliberate, and choose differently based on our values and experiences. The implications of this debate are profound, impacting areas such as ethics, law, and personal responsibility. For example, if we accept a fatalistic viewpoint, it could lead to a sense of helplessness, where individuals may feel that their actions do not matter. This could affect mental health and motivation, as believing in free will often encourages people to take initiative, strive for change, and improve their circumstances. Conversely, an unwavering belief in free will could lead to harsh judgments of others, as it places the entire burden of responsibility on individuals, ignoring the complex interplay of factors that shape their choices. In literature and popular culture, this debate is frequently explored, with characters often grappling with their destinies versus their desires. Many stories depict heroes who struggle against fate, illustrating the human desire for agency, while others embrace the idea that destiny can be fulfilled regardless of personal struggle. This tension between fatalism and free will resonates with many, as it reflects our own experiences, Social conditioning plays a significant role in shaping our thoughts, behaviors, and ultimately, our sense of free will. From the moment we are born, we are exposed to various influences, including family, culture, education, and media, which all contribute to our understanding of the world and how we fit into it. These influences can shape our beliefs about what is right and wrong, what is acceptable behavior, and even how we perceive ourselves and others. For instance, a child raised in a strict household may grow up believing that obedience is a virtue, while another child from a more liberal environment might value independence and self-expression. This early conditioning can lay the groundwork for how individuals navigate their choices throughout life. Moreover, social conditioning often operates through subtle cues, such as language, societal norms, and peer pressure. These factors can create a framework within which people make decisions, often without realizing the extent to which their choices are guided by external influences. For example, advertisements and social media portray certain lifestyles as desirable, leading individuals to aspire to those ideals, even if they don't align with their true preferences or values. In this way, social conditioning can limit the scope of what individuals consider to be possible choices, effectively narrowing their paths to personal fulfillment. Additionally, the influence of culture cannot be overstated. Different cultures have distinct values and expectations that can shape an individual's beliefs about freedom and autonomy. In collectivist societies, for instance, the emphasis on community and family may lead individuals to prioritize the needs of the group over personal desires, which can be perceived as a restriction on free will. Conversely, in more individualistic cultures, the emphasis on personal achievement and self-determination can foster a sense of freedom, but it can also create pressure to conform to certain standards of success. The phenomenon of social conditioning extends to our emotional responses as well. People often learn how to react to situations based on societal norms, which can lead to a lack of authentic emotional expression. For instance, in some cultures, showing vulnerability is seen as a weakness, leading individuals to suppress their true feelings, thereby affecting their ability to make genuine choices that reflect who they really are. This emotional conditioning can create internal conflicts, where individuals feel torn between societal expectations and their own desires, further complicating their sense of autonomy. Furthermore, education systems play a crucial role in social conditioning, as they can either reinforce or challenge societal norms. Schools often instill specific values, such as competition, discipline, and conformity. The concept of free will has long fascinated philosophers, theologians, and scientists, and today it intersects intriguingly with the field of artificial intelligence. When we talk about free will, we refer to the ability of individuals to make choices that are not predetermined by prior causes or divine intervention. But what does this mean when we introduce machines that can make decisions? In the context of artificial intelligence, particularly with advanced systems capable of learning and adapting, the question arises whether these machines possess any form of free will, or if their actions are merely the result of algorithms and programming. AI operates on data, learning from patterns and making predictions based on the information it has processed. But can this be equated with free will? For example, consider a self-driving car, which must make quick decisions based on its surroundings. The car uses sensors and algorithms to navigate, but its choices are bounded by the programming set by its developers. It doesn't choose in the same way a human does, reflecting a conscious decision-making process. Instead, it follows a predetermined set of rules and learns from vast amounts of data, which limits the concept of agency attributed to it. Moreover, when we think about free will, we often think about moral responsibility, the ability to make choices that can result in good or bad outcomes. If a robot makes a decision that leads to an accident, who is responsible? Is it the creators of the AI, the programmers who wrote the code, or the machine itself? This dilemma highlights the complexities of ascribing free will to artificial entities. While humans can weigh moral implications and make nuanced decisions based on ethics, AI lacks this intrinsic moral compass. As we delve deeper into the implications of AI and free will, we must also consider the philosophical perspectives on determinism. Some argue that humans themselves may not possess free will in the absolute sense, as our choices are influenced by genetics, environment, and past experiences. If we accept that human decisions are shaped by many factors, does this open the door to a blurred line between human decision-making and AI operations? Additionally, there's a burgeoning field of study known as machine ethics, which seeks to define how AI should make ethical decisions. This raises questions about whether it's possible to program free will into machines, or if they can ever truly understand the nuances of human morality. For instance, self-learning algorithms can adapt their behavior based on feedback, but this adaptation is not the same as free will. They do not possess consciousness. The role of reflection in exercising free will is a fascinating topic that delves into how our ability to think deeply about our choices impacts the decisions we make. When we talk about free will, we often think about the freedom to choose between different options, but reflection adds a whole new layer to this concept. Reflection is the process of considering our thoughts, feelings, and experiences, allowing us to gain insight into our motivations and the consequences of our actions. It's like holding a mirror up to our minds, helping us understand not just what we want, but why we want it, and how our choices align with our values and beliefs. One important aspect of reflection is that it encourages us to pause before acting. In today's fast-paced world, where decisions often need to be made quickly, taking a moment to reflect can be incredibly beneficial. This pause allows us to weigh our options more carefully, considering the long-term effects of our actions rather than just the immediate gratification. For instance, when faced with a decision, such as whether to accept a job offer that seems appealing but might conflict with our personal values, reflection helps us examine how this choice aligns with our broader life goals. Moreover, reflection can also enhance our self-awareness, which is crucial for exercising free will effectively. By understanding our own biases, triggers, and emotional responses, we equip ourselves with the tools needed to make more informed choices. This self-awareness can help us recognize patterns in our decision-making, allowing us to break free from automatic or impulsive reactions, thus exercising our free will in a more conscious and deliberate manner. Another intriguing element of reflection is its role in moral decision-making. When we reflect on ethical dilemmas, we engage in a process that goes beyond mere choice. We consider the implications of our actions on ourselves and others. This deliberation can lead to more compassionate and just outcomes because it involves empathizing with the perspectives of others, weighing the potential impact of our decisions, and ultimately choosing actions that align with our moral compass. Furthermore, reflection can also aid in learning from past experiences. When we take the time to think back on our decisions, analyzing what went well and what didn't, we can gain valuable insights that inform future choices. This iterative process of learning and growth is essential for exercising free will in a meaningful way, as it allows us to adapt and evolve based on our experiences. Interestingly, different cultures and philosophies have varying views on the relationship between reflection and free will. In some traditions, the future of the free will versus determinism debate is an intriguing area of philosophical inquiry, as it continues to evolve with advancements in various fields, including neuroscience, psychology, and even quantum physics. As researchers explore the brain's workings, they uncover more about how decisions are made, which raises questions about whether these decisions stem from free will or are predetermined by prior causes. The implications of neuroscience are particularly significant, as studies reveal how brain activity can sometimes predict a person's choices before they are consciously aware of making them. This suggests that our sense of free will might be an illusion, a thought-provoking idea that challenges long-held beliefs about human agency. In addition, the growing field of genetics is contributing to this debate, as scientists discover that certain traits and behaviors may have a hereditary basis. leading many to ponder the extent to which our choices are influenced by our biological makeup. This intersection of genetics and free will opens up discussions about moral responsibility. If our actions are influenced by our genes, to what extent can we be held accountable for them? Such questions invite a re-evaluation of legal and ethical frameworks, as society seeks to understand the implications of determinism in personal accountability. Moreover, philosophy itself is seeing new directions, as contemporary thinkers encourage a more nuanced perspective that goes beyond the binary of free will and determinism. Some propose compatibilism, the idea that free will and determinism can coexist, suggesting that even if our choices are influenced by external factors, we can still act freely in a meaningful way. This position is gaining traction as it aligns with our intuitive understanding of personal agency, allowing for a reconciliatory approach to this age-old debate. In the realm of artificial intelligence and technology, the conversation is also evolving, as machines begin to make decisions that resemble human judgment. As AI systems become more sophisticated, questions arise about the nature of decision-making and whether machines can possess a form of free will, or if they are simply executing predetermined algorithms. This intersection of technology and philosophy prompts us to think critically about autonomy, what it truly means to make a choice, and whether that choice can exist without conscious deliberation. Furthermore, the implications of the free will versus determinism debate extend into social and political realms, as we examine how beliefs about free will influence our views on justice, punishment, and rehabilitation. If we lean towards a deterministic view, we might advocate for more rehabilitative approaches in criminal justice, emphasizing the role of societal and environmental factors in shaping behavior, rather than solely focusing